Hello, everybody. Stephen Miller here, Circle Builders. Thanks for watching this video. I was thinking about something today. I was in my office and I jotted some stuff down on my laptop. It's a question I get, in our talks, in our events that we do, my travels around speaking. This is a, a common theme of discussion among men, and that's mostly what we do, men's ministry things. Um, my assignment is to build men. This is the question that gets thrown around a lot. What does a real man look like? You can scour the internet, you can look all over YouTube and find 101 videos that run the entire spectrum of what a real man looks like. Some think it's ripped abs, fast cars, and money. All right. I know a lot of people with abs, fast cars, and money that can't go to sleep at night without pills. Can't get up in the morning and start their day without more pills. They're working on their third or fourth family. It's not just that. Others think it's tattoos, big bikes, and cigars. Well, I got news for you. It's not just that either. Others think it's to be in charge, call all the shots, be the loudest guy in the room. I'm not knocking all of these individual, achievements or traits, characteristics, but in and of themselves, that doesn't define what manhood is, what real masculinity is. And I think we need men that are going to live their life in such a way where it helps to redefine what that is. What does a real man look like? Right? Masculinity is under vicious attack in this country. It's so much so that the average man seems to be a little bit sheepish and embarrassed about being a man. It's not vogue to be proud of being a man. And I get it. There's a lot of, entities, a lot of institutions, a lot of people out there that have not responded to this. It's an epidemic to me, have not responded in the greatest of ways, and that's something we have to be concerned about as well. We have to be concerned about the attack against masculinity, and then we have to be concerned about the inappropriate reaction to it. And that's the guys that get up, everything's macho, tough guy. And, I play tackle football on concrete, and I chew gravel for fun. Everything is how big, bad, and tough they are. Nothing wrong with being big and tough, but at the end of the day, we have to work on this thing called moral masculinity. The scriptures are our guide. That's the ultimate authority for us. And in terms of God, our creator, what's his idea? I think that's pretty important to find out what the creator thinks, right? So in this thought about what does a real man look like, I jotted down some things here. We could come up with a list of 50, but I'm just going to do four because I think simplifying these conversations is always the best way to go. Number one, a real man leads. Period. He leads. Doesn't mean he's always the loudest guy in the room. Doesn't mean he's always talking over everybody else. It means that he leads. And first and foremost, he leads where it matters most. And that is his own kitchen table. You have to take back the ownership and the control of your own kitchen table. Doesn't matter if you build a great company, you make a lot of employees wealthy and so forth. Man, if in the middle of all of that, you're not leading your home and your family falls apart, you lose that, you're not leading. You have to lead. You're wired by our creator. It's innate. It's an innate quality. It's inherently in us to lead. And that leadership starts in our home. That's my term for that is, at the kitchen table, your own family and those that God has graced to regularly attend that kitchen table. And leading in your family is not just, barking the orders when you walk in the door. That day of being able to walk in the house and just say, hey, like you're a military commander in a boot camp setting somewhere, and you're just like, do this, do that, do that. And somebody says, why? And you say, because I'm the man of this house, because I said so. Well, that may be true, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't work that consistently, doesn't work that well. Because what you need to do when you're leading in your home is you have to communicate the standards and the requirements of leadership. This is what leadership looks like. And that is evident in the way a man leads himself, the way he exhibits self-discipline in all the areas of life that really matter. So it's the standard and the responsibilities of leadership that he has to display to his house. But you also need to show the advantages and the benefits of good leadership. And people will take notice. You got to lead. Secondly, you got to provide. You got to provide. I run across people sometimes that these are grown men, and they got the newest watch, the hot watch on, a newest, name brand shoes and this, that, and the other. Or they just went out and bought that, American muscle car. And, their kids are doing without at home. There's an old saying that says, I'll probably butcher this, but it has to do with, a military code. And it says the generals eat last, I think is how it goes. Some of you that are military guys, you can correct me. But leadership has to do with putting people above and before you. Jesus said it like this in the scriptures. He was talking to his disciples, and he was talking to them about leadership. And he makes this comparison. He's pointing to the culture of people that currently have the Israelites enslaved. And he says, he calls them Gentiles, and he says, how those guys exercise leadership. He said they do it with an iron rod in their hands. They lord over the people. But he said, but it will not be so among you. In other words, Christ is saying that's not what leadership looks like in its true and original form. He said, it will not be that way among you. For if you want to be great, be the servant of all. If you want to be a leader, you need to serve. So providing means that you put the needs of your family ahead of your own. Sometimes you got to skip out on buying that boat until you make sure that your kids are able to go to college or whatever the case may be, right? The scripture says it like this: a man who won't work and provide for his family is worse than an infidel. I don't know about you, but when the scriptures identify somebody's an infidel and then attaches a certain behavior to it, trust me, you don't want anything to do with behavior that results in you being worse than an infidel. So a real man, what does he look like? They come in all shapes and sizes, but one thing you can be sure of is he's leading. Second thing you can be sure of is that he is providing. The third thing is protect. Real men protect. They protect the people in their sphere. They protect the people in their circle. They protect their family, their wives, their children. They protect the unfortunate. They protect the weak, the feeble, the less fortunate. I love one of the stories that I've read it a lot. It's history, really. It's from the 5th century, and it's the stories of the great Persian Empire of the time trying to overtake the Greeks. And history tells us that for 50 years, they came and they tried to invade, to overpower, overtake, and they never won a battle. And history does a good job comparing for us the nature of the drive behind those two military forces. And it talks about the Persian warriors being driven by by fear and intimidation. They were many of them tortured to go into battle. They were shamed. They were beaten. They were prodded to go in and fight. And there was a word that was often heard when the Greeks found themselves being attacked or an invasion attempt was happening again from the Persians. And that word, you would hear, they say, entire battalions of men screaming out this word in unison. The word was arit, Arete, arit. And here's what arit means. It means masculine faith, semicolon. We fight for our families and we fight for our lands. And men who are fighting out of fear, intimidation, some with greed and so forth, could never, in 50 years in the 5th century, could not overpower the men who were fighting for their families, fighting for their land. There's something incredibly attractive, incredibly powerful, incredibly influential about a man who is committed to fight for the people in his life, especially those who can't fight for themselves. But nonetheless, fight for those that he's been entrusted with. Real men, they fight for what's right. We're not possums. We don't roll over and play dead. We're not sheep either. We don't just let ourselves be led around, told where to eat, what to do, where to go, what to think, and ultimately how to act. No, real men, they fight for what's right. They don't fight to be a yahoo, a hoodlum out there just to prove how tough they are. No, they fight, and they fight in different ways. Here's another consideration. When the Israelites, the children of Israel, were finally given permission by a king that this was the end of their captivity. They were given permission by the king, who they had gained favor with, and he gave them permission to go back and rebuild their temple. That was the big thing. They longed to rebuild the temple that decades earlier had been destroyed in the invasion. They wanted their own temple so they could restore worship to their God and so forth. And so they were. I'm skipping over a couple little things here, but ultimately they were given permission and they were given favor and supplies, resources to go back to their homeland and rebuild the temple. It took 20 years to rebuild that temple. 20 years to rebuild the temple. And, humor me as I paraphrase perhaps what the guys were thinking of as the temple was being completed. They look around and see what they had taken 20 years to build and realized we are vulnerable. The city has no walls. We've rebuilt the temple, but we could be invaded again tomorrow and all of this destroyed and it be for naught. And so what they did is they got all of the men together and they gave the men assignments. The assignments were to build a specific place, a section of the wall that surrounded the city. And they had enough men to surround the city and them build their particular section of the wall. And they were told, here's how you got to build. You have a trowel in one hand and a sword in another. And what you are actually building is that man's house for his family would be in that particular place in the wall, because that's what they did. They built their dwelling places. They built homes in the walls. So every man wasn't just building a wall to protect the city and protect the temple. He was building a fortress to protect his own family. It's amazing. And when you think about this, it took them 20 years to rebuild the temple. But when you assigned every man to build his place in the wall, that was going to be the place where his family was kept safe, his family was protected, provided for, he was going to make sure that his part of the wall was not the weak link. No, because that's where my family is. You know how long it took them to rebuild the wall around the entire city? After 20 years building the temple, it took them 52 days. I'm telling you, there's nothing more powerful than a guy who's fighting for the right things, especially beginning with his family and with his house. And the fourth thing, so we can keep this video shorter, here's what a real man looks like. A real man promotes his family. He promotes. You need to be your family's biggest cheerleader. Nothing worse to me, nothing more pitiful to sit around and talk to men and listen to them talk like they're in competition with their kids. They're resentful of their kids' success. I just want to grab them and shake them. I don't, but I want to sometimes. And you want to say, dude, what are you doing? What are you doing? It ought to be a natural thing in your life. It ought to be in your heart. You desire to see your kids do better than you ever did. You want your kids to do better than you did, and you want them to do it more efficiently, sooner. You want them to reach greater levels of success and achievement. That's the heart of men. That's the heart of real fathers. So that's the fourth thing is real men, they celebrate the people that are at their table. You ought to be your wife and your children's biggest cheerleader. You ought to be the one that's talking them up, encouraging them. Don't be the guy, right? I'm going to finish this video with this. I saw a guy, was asked to go see him and see if I could talk to him a little bit. Guy was a, multi-millionaire, very successful business guy, building a great company. And so I went to see him. He's walking me around his place of business. I'll try to be vague here in all these areas to protect the guilty. Protect the innocent. He's walking me around and he's showing me all the things they've achieved, the products they're developing, and all this stuff. And it was quite an operation. I got to tell you, I was immensely impressed. And as he's going around, I stopped him. I said, "Hey, so tell me what you think your biggest asset here is in your company." And he immediately zeroed in. He goes, "Culture." He said, "Culture. We have a great culture here among the people that work for me." He said they do more than what they get paid for. They show up early. They leave late. They understand what we're doing. We have a great culture. And I said, "And what do you do to nurture that dynamic of culture in your culture?" He said, "Well, I come to the office several days a week, and before I start answering emails, before I do anything," he said, "I put my stuff down in my office, and I go out there, and I walk the floor, I walk the factory, and I pat people on the back, high five people. I make sure they know how important they are to my company, how much they matter in our overall vision, and it gives them a sense of ownership and all." And he's talking about all this stuff, and he doesn't know the reason I'm there is because a mutual friend had asked me to go see him, because while he's doing that for that many people, his second wife is getting ready to leave him. And his kids do not feel appreciated, and so on and so forth. So I stopped, and I finally said, "Listen, just go ahead and exhale. Because I like what you're doing here, but I'm not overly impressed with it, because while I'm sitting here listening to you talk about how you cause all of these people to feel valued and feel special and cherished and so forth, I'm sitting here and I'm sent here to talk to you because the people in your own house feel the opposite." Man, he folded like a deck of cards. Now, he wasn't a bad guy. He just hadn't been taught. He had no systematic way. He just, gave himself all to the company, came home and the rules changed, and he didn't do the same for his family. But that's a sign and a mark of real manhood. Men promote. They build their families. They build the people that are within their circle, and they do it well. So that's my word for you today. Go to our website, circlebuilders.org. Take a look at our books there. But I'm asking you to like, share, Subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can leave comments. I'd love to hear from you. Where you're watching from? How did you stumble across this? You got any questions for me? I'm gonna do a couple of videos here pretty soon where I'm answering questions and addressing feedback that people send our way. So again, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video. Stay tuned. There'll be more.